I'll start. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Tucker. I am the manager of a group called Barnegat Communities That Care, which is here in Barnegat. Do you have Barnegat residents in here, or are they from everywhere? Barnegat residents.
Barnegat residents.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do in the community, as well as our prevention model. When I say prevention, I mean drug and alcohol prevention for youth and who are at risk, or youth in town just in general. So I work on a grant that is provided by the state of New Jersey, Department of Health, and Mental Health and Addiction Services. And I'm actually employed by RWJBarnabas Health. If you know of like Community Medical Center, that's RWJBarnabas Health. I have nothing to do with any kind of medical work. I do prevention. I've been doing prevention with youth since 2005, always working in a school setting. So this is a little bit different for me, working more in the community. But my heart is usually in the classroom, but now we're doing something new. Kurt is a member of our Barnegat Communities That Care. Very happy that you're here. So we'll hear more about what Kurt does in the community too. I'm gonna put you on the spotlight.
Speaker.
Good speaker, Kurt. So when I talk about prevention is a little bit different from what we kind of remember drug and alcohol prevention being. It used to be, you know, the slogans and the posters and the fear mongering, and it's changed a lot. And now instead of scaring kids out of using drugs, we wrap services and healthy practices around youth and families so that they can grow up to not need or be in a situation where they turn to drugs and alcohol. So that's what we do as a coalition. Now the model that we follow is a science-based model out of the University of Washington. So what we do here in Barnegat is done all over the world. We pay into this model, the Communities That Care model. And just on our agency, we run it in Cumberland River, we run one in Long Branch and Newark. And then me, I feel like there's another one. Cumberland River, Barnegat, Long Branch, Newark, was it? So that's in the state of New Jersey, but they're all over the place. So we were trained a few years ago, and we actually pulled our grant out of the school doing work with the actual students, and now we're doing more of a community focused scope of prevention, which is very different, but we're still doing things in the school. So what we do is our model is to bring community members together, especially people who have influence, money, power, but also the drive, the motivation to all work together for the better of the youth in town. So on our board, our Communities That Care board, we have the schools. You know, the superintendent of schools, Brian Latwis, works very closely with us. You know, school counselors, we have some teachers, we have from the schools, we have the police. Barnegat Township Police is very involved with Barnegat Communities That Care, the library, the rec department, Family Success Center, the community garden, we have some churches, we have just community members. And what we do is we come together to work together instead of like working in silos. So, you know, what typically happens, especially when it comes to, because everybody wants to help youth and they want to help community members. What happens a lot is this church over here is doing, you know, utility assistance, and this church over here is doing utility assistance, and this place over here is doing, you know, food bank or food pantry, and this place over here is doing a food pantry, and we're working in silos instead of, you know, well, why don't you guys take the food pantry and you guys take the utility, you know, you take the utilities, and then we'll work smarter, not harder, instead of everybody doing the same job. Let's kind of work together. So working together as a community has been awesome. We've been working together since 2017-18. Everybody who sits on our board was trained in prevention sciences to understand like why we do what we do and what we're doing. And I say it's magical. It's awesome. So, you know, an example would be Bayside Chapel, they were having families come to them saying, telling them that they needed help. They needed help with their electric bill, say. And Bayside Chapel would cut a check and help them. And then they'd be back again. And say, well, we need help again. And Bayside Chapel would say, okay, and they cut them the check. But and nothing was really happening except for them just giving money. The family wasn't being supported really in any other way. So through our coalition, they can't, became partners with the Family Success Center, who now when Bayside has somebody come to them and wants money or help or assistance, they refer them first to the Family Success Center, where they can hook them up with services. They can hook them up with what's out there that's available to you. How can we wrap around your family? How can we help you? And then they send them back to Bayside. So it's kind of it's just a better approach at helping these families that need assistance, as opposed to just giving money is wonderful and it's helpful, but sometimes these families need a little bit more. They need to learn how to feel a little bit, what's out there for them they could be utilizing on their own, what resources are available. So through that connection, through that collaboration, it's just one example of no longer working in silos and working together as a town. I did write some little notes so I wouldn't miss some things. The church's Hearts of Mercy. Anybody here heard of Hearts of Mercy? So they do a lot of work with youth. They do free tutoring, free art classes. So we work with them. Family Promise of Southern Ocean County, do you know what Family Promise is? So they help families that are homeless. And by the way, homeless doesn't just mean, living in your car or living on the street or living in a tent. Homeless is considered when you cannot afford your own home, like you're living at a friend's house or a family member's house. And Ocean County has such an issue with homelessness. It's not what everybody thinks it is. There's so many families who live in this county who are working, they have jobs, and now more than ever, they can't afford to support their families and provide them with somewhere to live. I was at a meeting recently and homelessness was brought up, and a woman who was there, who obviously didn't know better, she made a comment about oh, well, they must be addicted to drugs, or she made some kind of comment that no, that's not what's happening here in this county. So Family Promise of Ocean County is the only agency that helps homeless families in Ocean County, because we don't have a shelter, because they don't see homelessness as a problem in our county, because the numbers aren't there. People actually physically living on the streets and living in the woods. So on a federal level, those numbers are not counted towards homelessness. So because they're not counted towards homelessness on a federal level, we don't get the funding. It's a very backward system. So it's not what I do, but I just wanted to bring that up, that it's such a need in this county and people really are in need of help. So we work closely with the Family Promise of Southern Ocean County, the Rotary, I mentioned the recreation, and then just community members in town. I could be forgetting people, but we all come together 4 times a year. We have quarterly meetings where we go through what's called the 5 phases of Communities That Care. So in the schools, every 2 years, we do a youth survey. It's not a survey that we created. It's a survey that it's through Communities That Care. It's nationally given out to many youth in the United States and all over the world. So we survey the kids with their parents' permission, 6th to 12th graders. And the questions on the survey are, about substance use, they're about home life, they're about depression, anxiety, they're about risks that we see in youth. And with those results of the survey, we're able to see where the students are struggling, not just by guessing. We call it throwing spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. A lot of times we want to help and we just go out and do what we think needs to be done, but sometimes that's not what needs to be done. So we use data. So first we survey the students. We've done, we just did our 3rd round of surveying. Once we survey the students, we have our results. We then come up with our data work group. We then come up with a a risk that we feel like the survey results show that we really need to work on this risk. Actually, we come with 3 risks. So this go around, what our data showed, which was really interesting because we were able to, we surveyed the kids in 2019, and then we surveyed the kids in 2021. So what happened in between? The world broke. So we were able to actually, through data, like see the change and what had happened in these students' lives. And what we found was, and this goes along with all over the country, depressive symptoms skyrocketed, as well as low commitment to so the kids aren't feeling as committed to school. But what I found was interesting was when we asked them, do you feel like what you do in school is meaningful? They said yes, for the most part, but they still don't feel that connection. And I can make assumptions, but I'm willing to bet that feeling the depressive symptoms is impacting their commitment to the schooling. And also we saw that in the home, parents are asking their kids less where they're going, who they're with. Parents from 2019 to 2021, parents are providing their kids with way more booze than they were before. That's where kids are getting their liquor for the most part, and that's where they're drinking. So it's helpful to have that data, because now we know like who to target. If we want substance use to come down with teens, we know like where they're getting it from. We know where they're drinking. So now we know who to target with it. We could do like, something for the parents, like an education for the parents. But good to know that through our survey results, substance use in general, marijuana, drinking, vaping, cigarettes, all of it, the use in Barnegat for teens is below national average. And it has all gone down. So, we were able to see the vaping rise, and then we were able to see in 2021, it fall. Kids are still obviously using substances, but it's good to know that we're under the national average. Our kids use less. So that's what we do. So then we bring it back to our community board. Our community board, we say, okay, what do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on the depressive symptoms? Do we want to focus on the family unit? Or do we want to focus on the commitment to school? And then as a board, with about 30 of us to sit around the table on average, with lunch, we vote. And this go around, we voted on depressive symptoms. The last cycle, we voted on family conflict showed up in the data, that was something that needed to be addressed. And through that, we were able to find grant funding to implement an additional cycle of the Strengthening Families program for the high school and middle school students. And then the time before that, community disorganization showed up big, and also I feel like it was also low commitment to school. And what we did there was we were able to put together a mentor program. It was already running, but we decided with the school that the mentors really needed to be trained. So we put together a training program for the mentors. But then COVID happened and school stopped. So that kind of so these kids are really starting from scratch when it comes to they're really trying to build their lives back up to what they could have been before everything kind of shut down. And then after we implement a program based upon our risk factor, we do it all over again. So we're continuously like starting new projects, but never throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. We're always surveying first to see where the need is, and then trying to fill the gap. So right now, we have chosen depressive symptoms. So now what we do is what's out there. So if any of you know of any services that have to do with depressive symptoms and combating that, please let me know. Because what we're doing is we're putting together a list of everything that's already out there, all the services, in the schools, outside the schools, other agencies that could help our youth and our families, combat depressive symptoms. And then we figure out, okay, what's missing? What's unobtainable? You know, we have a really big transportation issue in Ocean County. So are there services up in Tums River and Brick that our kids can't get to? We have to find out where the barriers are. And then with that, we then choose, okay, so knowing where the gaps are, knowing what our kids' barriers are, what do we want to do? And we like to really go for things that are evidence-based. At least, we like the program to be evidence-based, but if it's not, we like the science behind the program to be evidence-based. So we know that mentors through science, through data, we know that a youth having a mentor through data shows us that they're more likely to be less at risk and more successful. So we kind of use that to back up our program. Any questions there? Or what are your questions there? So some of the things that we have implemented over the past couple of years, we brought more grant funding to Barnegat. We've created a whole nother position in the schools that does just prevention by finding and applying for grants to come into town. We fund the Strengthening Families program for the middle and high schoolers. We train mentors, like I said. We run what's called social development strategy workshops throughout town for kids. And I'll get into that in a little bit, exactly what that means. The garden, the second go around of the garden was started around our table, right? So the conversation got started.
Around our Zoom present.
Yeah.
Our Zoom meeting.
It was our Zoom meeting. I remember being brought up by Hana Yoga a long time ago. They actually started a meeting with somebody that wanted us to grow everything in bags. You went around for that?
Oh, no,
The community garden, the topic of the community garden has been such a hot topic for such a long time, with especially now, like the food insecurity issue that's going on now is such an asset to have. I feel like next we need to do like people learn how to like canning. Anybody here how to can? Anybody can? And where are we gonna keep you? Is there a basement here? Wait, I have a basement in the floodplain. You guys have a basement?
Well, if the floor to ceiling is only about 2 feet, is that a basement?
I don't know. Oh,
Everything east of Route 9 at some point.
I live on Route 1.
That's what they made, that's how they put Route 9.
Well, that was like the parkway back then. Oh, because the floodplain. So I did read somewhere that, you know, back in the day when people were building their houses here, I also love local history. Like where you see the last old home before you hit the bay is like, you should really never build past that. They did not have the resources to rebuild their homes. They didn't have home insurance. So they would build where they knew they wouldn't get destroyed. Although Sandy filled our basement, but we are the last old home before you hit the bay. We're on Route 9.
Oh.
But you guys have a lot more land back here. I live in West Creek. Okay. Okay. We run prevention programs in the schools. We help bring National Night Out back, which is a night in August. The police department technically runs it, but it had gone, we did it once and then it had not happened for many years. So around our table, we already had everybody together. Like, let's, you know, other towns are doing this. Let's get this back. Like, let's get the band back together. Let's do a National Night Out, which they've been so successful since we started doing that. We love to foster town-wide collaboration. I also created, this is, I don't know how familiar you are with, you know, QR codes. We also have a link for this, but some people love them, some people hate them. This is our resource guide. So on here you'll find resources for utility assistance, we're all like, where you can get, food from, mental health resources, addiction resources, really any kind of resources that we can think of for families. And it's, it's an ever-changing document. It just really links to all the different web pages. But I could also, you have a web page here, right? I could send you the link if you wanted to put it up for and I can leave you some for your members.
To CT.
Okay, great. And then something we've been doing lately is we've taken it upon our members of some of our work groups. We really want to engage more and bridge the gap with the 55+ communities in town. So half of the population of Barnegat, it lives in a senior community. That's half of the voting block. That's who's really calling the shots in this town. And we really want to bring everyone together so the 55+ community can not only see the need of the youth and families, but we can also work together. So every time I meet with anybody who lives in a 55+ community, they're always asking like, how do I get involved? I want to volunteer my time. I'm bored. Like, what can I do? So at first we were like, oh, well, you could do this, you could do this. So what we did was we created cards, and on these cards, back and front, is in chronological order, the things that they can either donate to, anybody can donate to or get involved in, with phone numbers, not QR codes. So the Easter supply drive, your family promise in the spring, the community garden with Kurt, the summer food program. So the families who can't afford food in the summer because their kids aren't getting free and reduced lunch. Waretown Methodist put together the summer feeding program, and they worked with Michelle Cuccinata, who's a great asset to the schools, and they package lunch for the families for the whole week, and they deliver to their homes. So if anybody ever wanted to either help package lunch or help deliver or help in any way, the family feeding program, there's a school supply drive through Ms. Cuccinata as well, Hearts of Mercy tutoring, PTA, even though it sounds like there'd be a parent be involved with PTA. If you don't, there's trunk retreats, there's like different events where they're always looking for help. They're looking for people to sponsor a trunk retreats or an organization. Thanksgiving food donation, holiday toy donation through the police department. And that was another thing that changed. It used to be you could donate your toys all over the place. And they were kind of like people were double dipping. It was kind of confusing. So when we all got together, we're like, let's work smarter, not harder. So now there's just one toy drive for the whole town. It's run through the police department. And I think the Rotary also helps with that, but there's one drop off now. Adopt a family at the holiday times, like some of the 55+ developments want to adopt like one family to just like provide them with Christmas. Ocean County mentors, if anybody's interested in being a mentor in the schools, you would do it through the Ocean County mentors. That's where you get like your background check and you got like a little mini training, and that's where they link you with a student in the schools to come weekly or bi-weekly and mentor. And also Friends of the Library. The library is always looking for volunteers. So I had these cards made.
Oh, good, I don't have one of these yet.
These are random. I spelled something wrong on the first batch. And Canva doesn't have spell check. Sorry. I can leave some extras if you want to hang them up. So lastly, I just want to touch on something that's called the social development strategy. And that's also one of the things that we do with CT Care, Communities That Care, is that as a coalition, we want the adults in town, teachers, community members, people that run children's programming, the sports programs, whoever, to understand, parents, the importance of what's called the social development strategy. And we all do it, we just don't have a lingo for it. So basically what it is, think about when you were a kid and you were taught a new skill. right? By somebody that you admired, whether it was a sports coach or whether it was you learned how to sew or whether it was your favorite Sunday school teacher, whoever it was. And think about the impact that person may have had on you as you grew into an adult even. And what that all boils down to the science of social development strategy, that when you give youth an opportunity to learn a new skill, and you let them go through the failures and that they learn their new skill, it's important then to follow through with these steps. So after they've learned their skill or while they're learning their skill, it's really important to recognize them for it. Once they feel that recognition and they accept that recognition, they're way more likely to bond with you. Think about when you were a kid again, that person that taught you that skill that you admired, like they probably recognized you for it. That's why you probably admired them so much. They made you feel a certain way, made you feel special, made you feel like you were important, like they made you feel like you accomplished something, right? Once a child is bonded to you, this is like where we need people to understand. Once they're bonded to you, you held a lot of power. And the power can go one or two ways, right? Think about like a coach teaches, a football coach, right? Child learns a new skill, they're really bonded to their coach, then their coach is always joking around about drinking on the weekend. So that youth is more likely then to follow those standards. Well, I'm really bonded to my coach. My coach is okay with boozing on the weekend, so it must not be that bad. So once we have bonded to them, we have to be careful the path we lead them down because it's a very powerful tool. And I really feel like we walk through life sometimes really mindlessly about the impact and the influence we have on others. So we really train like coaches and teachers and community members. First of all, if you're working with youth, teach them a skill. I mean, Kurt's like a master at this. Not only does he do the community garden and invite youth in to plant and to grow things, he also does Boy Scouts, he flies planes, he does all this stuff. But do you notice that would you be able to hold as many kids as they say into Boy Scouts without teaching them how to do anything? If you just had meetings and sit around and like just talk, would you keep them?
No, they
They would leave.
like, oh, I don't want.
And like, what is it?
They want to learn stuff.
They want to learn stuff. And like in those moments where they learn those skills, like what do you notice within them?
Well, especially with Boy Scouts, they grow and become leaders, and they have an influence on the other scouts, like the younger scouts. The older scouts tend to look after the younger scouts. So the younger scouts look up to the older scouts.
So it's like social development strategy, like circling and circling and circling and cycling and stuff. So yeah, so like we're just tasked with making sure that parents even understand that when you teach your kid how to make eggs, if you kind of forget the recognition part, that lesson kind of falls away. I mean, they still know how to make eggs, but the opportunity to become more connected to them kind of falls away. So yeah, so that's something we do. So we run workshops for kids in the school year. We do cooking classes. We do paint. We're doing a paint party coming up for second and third graders. We did stuff in the community garden. I feel like there's another one missing. Usually we do one for every grade level. Something that you'll see that's popping up is we're bringing into town police cards, which is like a trading card for each of the officers. It looks like a baseball card, and it has the officer on it and their uniform, and the back has the stats like a baseball player would, and the kids collect them, and then we have like a signing event where they can get their sign, and whoever collects the most, the Rotary is going to sponsor a gift for them. So it's really like connecting the kids to the police in a positive way, and like that's something we're working on. We're working with the Rotary, the police department, and us. We're all sponsoring that project, and that's upcoming. So for anyone who is interested in coming to any of our meetings or becoming more involved and learning more about what we do, this is our meeting schedule. And I would invite you, especially to the community board meetings. We have one coming up in March. It'll be a Bayside Chapel. We have one coming up in March. It's Bayside Chapel. Great, you want one?
I got one. The front
Um,
we reopen.
We meet, I provide lunch, and what we do is we just give updates of those meetings, and it's a really great way to connect with other members of the community, especially people who are doing a lot of work, and either you want to collaborate or you want to learn more about what they do. And it's a good way to find out like what else is going on in town, what the new projects are, what the new initiatives are.
We have an online comment here.
Yeah.
Through grants to Tom's River Ministry and state programs, there's a housing resource center at 200 Portrait Circle, Tom's River. And then the phone number here, and it's open Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, is that through the county?
Carolyn, is that through the county? If she says Tom's River Ministry and state programs.
Okay. There's a Tom's River, Communities That Care, and I'll let that to our resource guide.
I don't know what the Tom's River Ministry exactly is. Can you either speak, Carolyn, or put something in the chat?
If they're like a
Yeah,
faith-based group.
It's the council of the ministers in Tom's River that meet once a month. And they're basically sponsoring this program and then connecting with state programs as well.
Do they have the families sleep at the churches at night?
We are starting to connect with the Blue Centers,
Got it. Okay.
Which
I'm
is-
gonna-
which
I'm
is,
gonna-
for people who don't have a place to be when it's so cold.
Oh, yeah, the blue,
The code blue
blue
shelter.
shelters.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's really not one either in the southern end of the county called Blue Shelter. There's only in,
Tom's
Tom's River North,
at least
yeah.
one.
Does everybody know what a code blue shelter is? It's when the temperature drops, it's for someone who doesn't actually have anywhere to sleep inside, that they can be warm. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments or ideas?
Just a question, I'm just curious, are you aware of homeless, like seriously homeless, like people who be sleeping outside, like that's being smothered? Are there people in Barnegat, Stafford?
Yeah, there's some communities in the woods, tent communities, there's a few in Barnegat.
Barnegat?
Yeah, that would be, so Family Promise, there's one night a year. The count in time is called, the point in time count. One night a year where they have to count people who are homeless, like how you're explaining, like no home, on a paper form. So they have to go into the woods and they have to find families, individuals who are living without a home, and they have to have them fill out a paper form on one night of the year, and that's how we get our funding from the federal government, from the HUD program. That's it. One night a year on a piece of paper, which is very weird, right? To edit that out. But that's how we got whatever funding we get for Ocean County, depending on how many forms they had filled out, which is very hard to do.
So people actually will go out.
People will go
find
out.
these encampments in the woods.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how they, and once they find them, like, they might not want anything to do with filling a form out. They bring them like, like bags with toothbrushes and things like that, as an incentive, maybe some coupons for some hot coffee, things like that, but it's a very strange system, how it's set up. It's a very big issue, especially now after COVID, where rents are skyrocketed. People really, I mean, people probably pay more than I pay for my mortgage to rent an apartment. It's very, I don't think I could afford to live on my own at this point. This is, outside of the scope of our talk, but it's an issue in our county, something to bring light to. Any other comments?
Question.
Yeah.
The sustainability work group, what's that?
So sustainability, so when we work on grant work, it's important that the goal of it is, if I were to pull this grant out, next year, that this work will continue to continue. So sustainability piece is like making sure that this initiative is really undertaken by the community members and that it could function without me. So we actually added our sustainability group to our executive group. So we kind of like merged it, and we meet when we meet with the executive group, and it's just a discussion we have on like, how do we feel like community members are engaging in this? I do feel like, there's the work is being done by the members and not so much just me, which doesn't always happen. I do a lot of the work, I get paid to do it. So
Yeah.
people are, so people are like, I'm a volunteer. I just want to show up in meetings and have food and hang out, which we have a lot of fun together. But the goal is to get those members to do more of the work, because this is something for Barnegat, and we wanted Barnegat community members to really take it on. So some of the work groups we have youth involvement work group is when we plan all the stuff to do with the kids in town. We have the public relations work group where we run some of our contests. We're doing poster contests with the kids in schools. We do a lot of our media stuff. We have Stephanie Fawnin, who writes. She writes for some of the online news outlets.
And the newspaper.
And now she's writing for the newspapers.
Yeah.
What is it called though? I forget. So it's
It's
important.
the little Barnegat one that comes in.
Yeah, like so it's like the
I mean,
leader.
at least. No, it's a little, little paper.
Oh, the Barnegat Leader?
I love the
Some-
leader.
yes.
Leaders in my town.
Yeah.
So she writes, and so some things are news written and some things are online, but it's really great to have a journalist on your team. Because it's a really good way of getting things out there. So, because you're connected to CCC, when you want things out, you can always go to Stephanie, she doesn't work for CCC, but she's just great to have around. She always wants to write about the good things that are happening. She'd much rather write about the good and get people to understand like what's going on there that's positive than the scandals. She stays away from that.
She's been here to the meeting.
Yeah, she's great.
And we have a sign language class on Monday.
Yeah,
And you maybe know Anthony.
yeah, I've heard of Anthony a lot around town. Yeah.
And she came here and interviewed Anthony.
Yeah.
And wrote a nice article about him.
Which is interesting because when you sign on to our resource guide, there's an option to take a survey. And they're anonymous, and it's really about resources in Barnegat. And somebody put in there, they must not know about Anthony. There's not enough resources for people who sign or for people with hearing impairment in Barnegat. And I wish I had, it's anonymous. Now I wish I would go back and so I can reach out to this person and link them up. So maybe I could change that up a little bit, but somebody had mentioned that.